MG Training, or Culinary Academy. The module is Knife Safety and Intro to Cuts. So our goal today, the module, talk about the module. The first sheet you should look at the top it says BOH Production Module, Knife Safety and Intro to Cuts. I'll be following this pretty closely, and there'll be other visual aids as I go through it. Can everyone here see we're all good with that? All right, so our goal today is to assure proper knife skills. Proper knife skills for personal safety, for uniformity of cuts, and for production efficiencies. The better we can use a knife, the better we'll be all around. Some of the tools that we may need, we obviously you've seen we've got some great stuff I'm going to talk about. The only other thing folks may want to bring as you take this back is their own knife kits. If someone has their own knives, they're welcome to bring those. We will need to be in chef attire, MG chef attire. So I'm going to do a demo now, and then Mike will take over with the hands-on. Between those two, we will ask you to suit up so we all look styling in our green coats and our brown baseball hats. The tools we're going to be using, the tools I'm going to use, and then we're going to pass out to you all. Of course, sharp knives, chef knife and a paring knife, the two most commonly used knives in our kitchen. A cutting board, notice it's green. We're going to be cutting all produce, so we want a green cutting board. Next, we've also got these. I know some of you are familiar with these. It's a shelf liner material. The Board of Health no longer likes towels, rags under cutting boards, so Robin had a giant roll of this at Sidwell. They were nice enough to cut them into just the right takeaway shape and size for us, so these are to go with you. We've got all kinds of stuff to take with you, but for underneath your cutting board to assure it doesn't slip. Gloves, we do have a variety of sizes. It's important to make sure you've got those varieties. Really need gloves that fit. I've got my towel and my sanitizer bucket, which I've used a test strip to make sure I've got the right calibration. I've got trash and compost receptacles for those of you who are composting. And just to share these as a visual, I am going to pull them because I think they're going to mess up the video. Don't want to do that. We're going to have storage containers, some film wrap. We're going to work on a little bit of labeling and dating, that sort of thing, making sure that we're all using correct labels and have all the information we need on them. So, let me go back a little bit to gloves. What we're teaching right now about gloves is if you are cutting a product that will be cooked after you cut it, you don't need to wear gloves. Unless you live in North Carolina where the regulations are you wear gloves no matter what. If you are not going to cook the product after you put your glove or after you cut it, you need to wear gloves. So if you're cutting an onion for soup, don't need them. If you're cutting an onion for a compost salad, do need them. All of the tools that I just talked about, all the tools mentioned here, this isn't just, okay, we're doing a demo today for MG Culinary Academy. These are the tools, the mise en place, we need to make sure we have in our accounts and that we make accessible to every employee. We need to give them the tools to succeed, so we need to make sure we have them in-house for them to use. So, what we're going to do, the first part of this, we're going to start out, we're going to talk about knives, we're going to talk about knife safety, we're going to watch a quick video. What Ree was saying earlier, there's a lot of videos out there that are really good. So as we develop our training materials, we're going to have some that we do in-house, some that we outsource at reasonable rates. There's some great stuff out there. So we are going to watch a video that will cover some of the information that I'm going to cover, but just a great, kind of another face, another voice. And then we're going to demo and do some cuts. So, talking about knives. The first thing in your playbook that I want to talk about.
We can look at any playbook.
It doesn't matter which playbook, they all have them.
Okay.
So as an introduction to knives, there's this great sheet.
Towards the back. Towards the back. Let's do that.
Yeah, the 4 pages I'm going to talk about are right there together, starting with this one. So this is the anatomy of a knife. Folks who've never worked in a kitchen, I think this is great information so they know the parts of the knife, the correct terminology. And then opposite that page are the type of knives.
Front and back on a page.
These are mostly at the top are the common knives that we're going to use, but it's a great picture of all different kinds of knives and their proper name. Again, the most commonly used knives, 90% of what we do in our kitchens, right here. A good chef knife, a good paring knife. The other 2 would probably be like a serrated bread knife and a good carving knife. That's it. There's a few other randoms thrown in for some things, but that's going to take care of most of what we need. It's important to have the right knife for the job you're doing. If you're trying to stripe a cucumber for the salad bar, you don't want to be doing this. If you're trying to break down a top round, it's not the tool to use. So making sure that your staff knows the right tool for the job and that they're using it safely. The next important thing about knives, as we get into safety, is to have a sharp knife. Dull knives will cut you much worse and much faster. You're having to use a lot more force to get a dull knife through product, so it will cut you much worse. So making sure we have sharp knives. On that line, we found Kate has been using, actually Kate and Nancy have been using Carolina cutlery for some time.
You'll have a sheet following.
In front of you, it's called Carolina Cutlery. They're a great company. As we started developing this module and Kate started looking at having knives for the meeting, wondering what we're going to recommend if we say you need to have sharp knives, how are we going to source a sharpening company in every area, what are we going to do with this? So she started talking to Carolina Cutlery, and they can service our entire company. Most of the accounts they will go to in person. The outlying accounts like Maltha Wilson and Camp on Craig, they will do by mail. They've got that down. It's a really cool thing. They've got sheaths and boxes. They pay for shipping, all that kind of stuff. So pretty cool that they can service our entire company. They're excellent knife quality, safety, cost control. And I remember an account years ago, I walked in and the bottom drawer in the hotline was this deep with dull knives. Dead knives that had been purchased, got dull, they went in the drawer. Let's avoid that. Let's have sharp knives. We're really recommending that we use a knife sharpening service. It works. Carolina Cutlery owns the knives. They come on a regular basis. You can tell, is it a week, every 2 weeks, every month? You determine that. They replace the knives as they get worn, so they give us however many knives we want. They come back in a week or 2. They take those knives away. They bring fresh, sharp knives. In the sheet, you can see it's a link to a knife list. You can go online, follow that link, and it will show you all the knives that are available to you. There's some really cool stuff in there. Pretty much anything you want. Handles can be color-coded if you want for safety, if you want green for produce, yellow for poultry, or if you want John to have green knives and Jane to have blue knives, whatever you want, you can color coordinate them. The contact information is there as well, so you can contact them. We will be getting more information. We're really early in this process, so we're trying to spread the information, but as we get a little bit more info and talk about it a little bit more, we'll be more specific with directives and what we'd like you all to do. Pricing is there as well. It is a minimum 5 knives, so $14.50. That's per delivery. So once a week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever it is, that's what it would cost you. You pick what those knives are. There's an additional charge per knife showing. And then there's some examples, kind of a wide variety of total costs per year based on how many deliveries, how many knives, whether you're a 34-week or a year-round program. So I think if you look here, you can pretty quickly figure out about what it would cost you. I think it's a very reasonable cost to make sure that we're providing really sharp knives all the time for our folks and giving them the tools they need to do the job we're asking them to do.
Hey Denise,
Uh-huh.
you can also, if you have a catering event, you need a one-time carving knife, or you need need a one-time cleaver, you need a one-time something there, really will do that for you. Just, put it on your next delivery, they'll pick it up, one-time fee. So if it's not something you do all the time, maybe you don't do a sliced car feed all the time, and you're only going to do it for a special occasion, you can get a good sharp knife for that one time and then send it back. So there's a lot of flexibility with that as well.
Great, thank you. And they also have some other services. They do cutting boards. That's where we did not get these there, but we've used cutting boards from them. They do sell them. They sell the colors. They sell knife racks. We've got 2 styles, a stainless steel and a poly.
And then
Yeah, these can also be color coordinated. In addition to this style, they've also got the magnetic strips. Obviously all these hang on a wall, so you need to get maintenance to hang them for you. But these are really the 2 ways we're recommending we store knives. Either a magnetic strip on the wall or in one of these knife racks hanging on a wall. No drawer of knives, no pile of knives, bucket of knives, that sort of thing. They can also do can opener blades, Roboku blades, that sort of thing. They will do slicer blades. If yours is really dull and you don't have the sharpening attachment, they can take it out and give you a loaner while they work on yours. So a lot of options there, a lot of opportunity to make sure, again, we've got the right products that we need. Any questions, comments up to this point? Okay. So we've talked about kinds of knives. We've talked about sharpening. We've talked about knife storage. And now we're going to watch a quick video. As I talked about before, doing some outsourcing. So this is a video that we found online that shows some basic knife safety tips. One of the things we can find online, there was a couple things that I take issue with that one in particular. It's time to dance. I don't like the fact that it was a wooden cutting board. I don't like the fact that she used the towel. We had just talked about we need to use shelf liner or cutting board mats. The other thing I don't like is the knife guards. If you've got your own set of knives, you take care of them, you've got guards for all of them, that's fine, but in a commercial kitchen, expecting those knife guards to get washed, rinsed, and sanitized as much as they need to be is unrealistic. Hence the reason for the knife racks. So, again, I think it's good information. Our in-service, which I'm going to go through next, is more complete information. So, if you look in your playbook,
which one?
it doesn't matter.
There are
This sheet, hopefully this is very familiar to you. You've done this for your staff a few times. We have adjusted the information a bit, added some new stuff to it. Pardon my sticky notes, my notes to myself so I don't forget. First, use a sharp knife. We've talked about this quite a bit. Dull knives, not only will they cause injury more quickly, the damage they cause is much more difficult to fix than a sharp knife. A ragged cut is much more difficult to stitch and heal. Never grab a falling knife. Never put knives in your pocket. I have a really embarrassing story. Unfortunately, it's only from like a year ago or 2 maybe. I was really busy in a kitchen, and paring knives tend to disappear rather quickly in this particular kitchen, so I had to use the restroom. So I took my paring knife and I popped it in my back pocket. Off I went. Well, a couple minutes later, I had a pretty nice stab wound to the back of my calf. So, don't carry knives in your pocket. Or if you do, take them out before you need to do anything. So, yeah, no, lesson learned.
Where's the brown sheet?
Yeah, I was too embarrassed to actually put a brown sheet through for that. How did the incident occur? All right, using the right knife for the right job. Again, really need to make sure we're using the correct tool. Always cut away from, never toward yourself. If you're trimming, I know we don't do this much anymore, but if you're trimming a ribeye or something, cut that way, not this way. Be careful if you've got someone beside you as well. If you're trimming a ribeye and it gives, so be aware of who's around you, what they're doing. When a knife is in your hand, keep your eye on the blade. Do this when you're cutting and when you're carrying. You're a whole lot less likely to cut yourself if you're always looking at that blade. The other thing I've seen in kitchens a lot too is people get animated. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you won't believe what I did! Like, it was great." You know, people walking around and standing there doing this. I've seen it. So, you know, just make sure folks are aware of what they have in their hand and that, you know, the knife stays on the cutting board and not, you know, if you need to get a little animated, put the knife down. Carry a knife properly. I think she did a really good job with that. If you need to walk through the kitchen, you walk with it down at your side, rigid arm, blade pointing towards the back. If you need to pass a knife to someone, you put your hand on top of the blade and pass it to them, handle first. Obviously, now that we've touched the blade, they would need to wash, rinse, and sanitize this knife before they use it. Never put a knife in a handful of sink. She talked about that. These knives in particular, if we soak them in sanitizer, they can rust. But in a sink full of dishwater or in the hand sink, when you need to wash your knife, take it to the pot sink, wash, rinse, sanitize it, let it dry. And by the same token, anytime you wash or sanitize your knife and your cutting board, make sure you're doing the same for your mat underneath. These need to be washed as well. Always cut on a cutting board. It can damage the blade if you're using metal, glass, and granite. Color coordinated cutting boards. We do have, I think it's 20 sets of color coordinated cutting boards. The Foodie QA team came up with that we would buy 4 colors. Recommend obviously green is for produce, yellow is for poultry, red would be for red meats, and then white is for dairy items, ready to eat foods. We do have a bunch of sets to send back with folks, in addition to the mats for the cutting boards. Cutting board racks as well. I mean, I think this was $30 for this one. It holds 6 cutting boards. It's right from Adams Birch. They stock them, so it only takes a day or 2 to get in. We really can't be just stacking cutting boards up. They don't dry well, they get really funky and stinky, and they just harbor bacteria and pathogens. So make sure you've got a knife for or a rack for your cutting boards. The next is the claw grip. I do want to talk about it first, and I'm sorry I'm lefty, so you know it's going to be backwards for most people. Well, yeah. The people who are in their right mind will understand perfectly. Your thumb goes on one side of the blade, your index finger on the other, and then your 3 fingers wrap around. You've got maximum control. The blade doesn't wobble. It's exactly as it should be. Next, your claw. These 3 fingers will help guide the knife as you cut. These 2, the pinky and the thumb, can help hold if you've got a pile of stuff that you're trying to dice. They hold while this moves. Okay, any questions or comments about any of that? All right, next we are going to look at, I apologize, I have to go back for that. We've gotten these, they're in your beaners, a smaller version. I'm sorry, I call these beaners, they're playbooks, is the official term. You do have a small version in your playbook. This is the poster that we will be giving out as well. The ones on the poster are to scale, so this is what a medium dice should actually be. This is the appropriate size. These are industry terms. These are not just sort of random. These should be universal wherever you go, whatever you do, whatever book you read. If you read medium dice, it's a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Small dice, large dice, we're going to show, and then some of the julienne stuff. There's a couple other cool cuts on here as well. Great reference for folks. Again, the size does matter when it comes to vegetables.
And we do have these posters to go back with. You get all kinds of presents.
All kinds of good stuff. Okay. Now, the rocking motion I'll show, let me get myself organized here. That's pretty much the instruction. That's the here and the see. Well, now you're going to see, not do yet. I am going to demo. Thank you, my sous chef. I am going to demo some cuts now. We may need just a second to make sure, is technology good? We're good to go? All right, again, I've got my paring knife, I've got my chef knife. We did a lot of the prep work last night, so we don't really need a compost bucket. We used that last night and got a lot of that stuff done. So I want to do, first I'm going to do a small dice, and we joked a lot about having a ruler out here and actually measuring. And I said, oh no, that's a little bit too much. But if you'll notice on the bottom of the cutting board, they do have a ruler. So, good reference. If you want to see how close you are to that 1/2 or 3/4, you've got a reference right there. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me though.
Oh, yeah.
I did wash my hands before I came up here, so my hands are clean.
Well, that's going in soup. Did you already cook that?
Yes, they are going to go in soup too. For the instruction part today and for the hands-on, we will ask everyone to wear gloves. Everything that we prep, we will be eating tonight and tomorrow, so rather than try to figure out that's going to be cooked, that isn't, wear gloves. So we glove up in the appropriate size. Something that I've been hearing a lot more about recently, powdered gloves. They make a mess. They really tear your hands up. It sort of works that latex, the cornstarch almost works the latex into your skin. You know, I would like to say let's just not buy powdered gloves. I mean, you may have individual cases where folks prefer them, but everyone I've talked to in the past year or so, can we get rid of those powdered gloves? I hate them. So really do recommend the non-powdered. All sizes are available through PFG. All right, so we're going to start with an onion. We're going to do a small dice. And a small dice is 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. The first thing you want to do, you've trimmed off the ends, you've peeled the onion, you've cut it in half and put your flat side down so that you've got a stable surface. You want to position the onion so that it's most comfortable. You don't want to have the onion like this and you're cutting like this. You want the onion so that your body is comfortable and relaxed. And it would be nice if the tables were about 6 inches higher. That would be very beneficial, even for someone who's not very tall. We want to go in almost a wagon wheel. Notice my fingers are guiding the knife. It's a nice sharp knife, so I don't have to put a lot of pressure. We do a wagon wheel to start the preliminary, and we're going for 1/4 inch, so we do want to make these 1/4 inch cuts. When you get down to this end, oops, and hope the onion doesn't fall apart. You can keep the stem on. We sort of talking about that, but I think most of the folks that we work with are faster without leaving the stem, but that's a personal choice. You may want to do this at that point again, making sure you're aware of that knife is. Again, you're going to go in at an angle. So when I say wagon wheel, you know, you go with the curve of the onion. So when you get to the ends, you don't cut down straight and have that big end piece. Next, you turn the onion. Again, always so that it's comfortable for you. You make the food comfortable for you. You don't work to make the food work. Again, my pinky and thumb are holding the ends of the onion to hold it stable. My knife is braced against my middle finger. And I do 1/4 inch. If you get down to the end, sometimes it's easier to tip it over and just finish up. Okay, that was slow for an onion, but I've got 1/2 an onion, pretty close to a great small dice, 10 seconds. Okay.
Now you forget that Denise totally kicked everybody's tail at DC Central Kitchen. And we were not under any pressure at all. We were dicing tomatoes as our volunteer work, and she was long gone.
Yeah, there wasn't any competition.
It wasn't competition, but she was just cruising. I mean, just cruising.
I don't know, Leslie was stiff competition. She had just taken her knife class, and she was, you know.
Well, and I will say, I was fortunate. When I started in this business when I was 17, I worked for a man, and my mother, the way my mother diced an onion, was to take it and go like this and make these cuts, and then turn it this way, and then do like this.
And you're
And that's the first onion I diced it the mile away. Joseph was like, oh, what are you doing? Stop, stop, stop. And he showed me the proper way, how to hold my hand. So right from the get-go, 17 years old, I learned the proper way to hold a knife and how to cut. The more practice you get, when you're starting out, go slow, but force yourself to do it the correct way. In no time at all, you'll be rolling right along. And it'll be so much safer than, I still see a lot of folks in our accounts. This is very common that doing this. It's unsafe, it's slow. We really need to invite people to learn the proper way to cut. There was another person, a woman I worked with very briefly. She fought tooth and nail. I was trying to show her how to cut the fruit, cut the ends off, peel the sides, scoop, cut them in half, scoop, and then cut them. Oh, you mean where you have to handle the things like 3 times? Yep. And I pushed her for, I guess, about a month. Please try, just try. Just try, that's all I'm asking. She finally tried it, and from that point forward, every time I saw her, thank you so much for making me do that. It's made my life so much easier. It's just so much faster. So, even some of the folks who've been around for a while and are hesitant, if you sort of keep that drumbeat going, they will try it. It will help them with their efficiency and with their safety too. So it's really worth pushing folks in a kind, loving, gentle fashion. All right, so our first cut was the small diced onion. Now I'm going to work on a julienne carrot. And a julienne is 2-inch length by 1/8 inch by 8 inch. So it's the matchstick cut. The first cut you want to make, take off one side so that you can then turn your carrot over and it sits flat. It's a stable environment, or it's a stable situation. You're not trying to cut a rolling carrot. You make your first cuts as planks. And notice my grip is a little bit different with this because it is the shape it is. It's a little bit difficult to use the claw. But again, always making sure that my knife is between my fingers, not on it, and making sure I always know where that knife is. Once I've made that initial series of planks, I can lay my planks into piles. And then I go back and do the same thing, but this time I cut them into matchsticks. If you find that they're slipping, you can break it down and do one at a time, so that you don't risk cutting yourself. So this is a julienne. If you wanted to do a brunoise, which is the finest dice really, this is used a lot for garnish. Again, you turn your product one more time, and you come in and do 1/8 inch dice. So it's the same process, you just keep getting finer and finer, smaller cuts as you go. And basically the same process for every cut. It just depends on how large your pieces are and how far you take it, from plank to slice or julienne to dice. Get my sanitizer bucket here, give it a little wash. Hopefully not spill it all over myself. Not that that's ever happened. All right, next I'm going to be doing a medium dice with a potato. A medium dice is 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. These potatoes are pretty small. I could have gone in thirds, but it's pretty close to do just cutting the potato in half. Again, same process. Planks 1/2 inch apart. This is what's called a batonette or a French fry cut. It's the step up from, so there's julienne, then there's batonette. And then one more time, and I've now got a medium dice, 1/2 inch. Thank you. Same exact process for a large dice. I'm just going to trim this base a little bit. I could use this for soup. In half, half again. I've now got a large dice. And the last one I'm going to show, the half moon. This is typically squash, carrots, things like that. If you are, like for vegetables, for a sauteed vegetable or a roasted vegetable. And what I want to show here is the rocking motion. I'm holding the claw, I've got my knife. I'm going to put the tip down and come down and rock the knife. So I'm not, you can do that, but it just causes a lot of noise and it's not really, you know, it wrecks the knife. So you rock. Your point stays down, you bring the heel down. Always the same width. So that's half moon. Obviously, if your carrot's huge, you could do quarter. If it's really tiny, you could do half. All right, that is the demo for intro to knife cuts. Any questions, comments, feedback? What do you all think? Could you take this back to your folks and do this module for your staff?
I like the fact that it's, you know, you can have it in the kitchen, get spills on it.
Wipe it off and go.
Exactly. That's what I really like about it.
Beaners, they can hang anywhere. They can hang on metro shelves.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't tell you. What's